All right, so Scott, Dr. Scott, PhD in virtual and augmented reality, interested in the intersections of drone racing, esports, and mixed reality technology.
Yep.
Dude, what's going on?
Okay. All right, so I started in 1984 at USC, and I met this guy that was the creative director for Carson Roberts, which is Ogilvy Mather, I guess you guys know that. So he promptly took me out of the film school and put me in English. It says, dude, you need to be something else other than a film guy. And that pissed me off. So so I started in, I think in maybe 87 to 90-ish, I bumped into this thing called virtual reality, and everybody's like, what is that? So I've been on this tour for virtual reality forever, and I've gone through all the big cubes, all the big everything. I've spent millions of dollars for people for all their Onyx machines. It's great to see a graphics card that's $500 instead of $30,000. And my first headset was $30,000, by the way, and now it's $299 with Oculus Rift. And so I was out in the field one time with a set of headset goggles, where here it is, like that. And then I said, this was in 2014, 2013. That's when I said, oh, virtual reality really is here because I'm not here, I'm there. And that's when I truly understood what virtual reality was. And so what drone racing does is that it puts everybody's got a inherent DNA in their blood to go flying like Superman or Superwoman. And so all of these actually let you do that. So these guys aren't like your Phantoms that you see that they only have a 30-degree tilt and they go about 20 miles an hour. These go 100 miles an hour, and they have a rotational degree of about 1,500 degrees per second. So that means that you would do, I don't know, faster than that.
Okay, so hold on. Let's get your boom right into the drone action. So I just thought this drone thing was kind of a niche, right? There's Skyrocket Toys that does little drones for, you buy at Toys R Us, and heard this company DJI who's worth maybe $1 billion now, and I heard GoPro moving into it, and so it's real, huh? This drone business is moving into an esports space. So what?
Yep.
So let's back up a little bit about drones and where it's moved into this racing side.
So drone racing is a little bit more sticky than esports because it's a combination of NASCAR and esports together. And when I mean sticky, it means that it's real. And esports, you can get that kind of that adrenaline rush off of things, but when you're actually flying something for real and you hit something, it's like, oh my God, I hit it. So I took about 8 elite pilots to Hawaii, and I thought, okay, how many Red Bulls could I stick in them without putting a Red Bull in on one Red Bull glass? So I took them in a helicopter, flew them to a 2,000-foot waterfall, and said, we're going to fly down the waterfall. And so they had rigs like this. Well, at 2,000 feet, you can't see it. But if you watch the goggles and what they're looking at, it literally was like they were wingsuit diving straight down the waterfall, doing flips and turns and upside down. The video's on YouTube. You can see it. And when they came off of the goggles, oh my God, you're gonna beep in your pants. It's like one of those things. It was just so intense.
Crap in your pants. Yeah, right. Gotcha. All right. So So we're a drone. We're a pilot. We're professional grade. We're racing against other teams, other pit crews, other engineers of a drone racer, and going in a course and racing. So let's there's a video, right? Want to cue up first?
Yeah.
What's the video? So before we play it, what is the video? What are we watching?
So let me give you a little bit of preface. So I ran the first national drone racing championships at the California State Fair, and that was in July of 2015. So not even a year ago. And it had 120 pilots from 9 different countries. We had every single TV station there. We had a live stream, and at that time it was 50,000 viewers in 125 countries. So, it was okay. So fast forward it, and we just inked a deal with ESPN to go live on ESPN for the next one, which is in Governor's Island in New York in August. So it means that drone racing is not a hockey stick. It's just a straight up thing. It's the fastest one I've ever seen grow before.
Wow. So this video is going to be one of the racing competitors, or
yes.
just a nominally kind of a hero reel, or specifically of a race right now?
Yeah, this is our 30-second promo that we released when we announced our ESPN deal. So it's just basically a quick shot of how on your road from being a drone pilot to a champion.
Let's roll it.
It starts with a dream. It ends with a champion.
We came to race.
The 2016 National Drone Racing Championships, live from Governor's Island, New York City, only on ESPN.
There we go.
That's ridiculous. So, all right, I know about I feel like there's a used to be an ESPN sportscaster. His name was Colin Cowherd. He said he quit the day esports was on ESPN, and he left about a month after esports started being featured on ESPN. Heroes of the Storm or Heroes of the Dorm, a lot of areas. So now I'm seeing drone racing. You made a pretty bold statement in terms of esports and where it's at. Now drone racing, where it's at. And obviously, you're very bullish. You're fully invested into this space and what's going on. So, what is the area of focus that makes drone racing appealing? Is it the team? Is it the gear? Is it sponsorships? Is it the ESPN? Is it the viewership? I think esports panel's coming up here in a little bit. They're going to be talking about things where 60% of the viewers aren't even playing the game, or the volume of the type of viewers on there. So what's the lean-in moment here that you sit there, and most of these people probably might lean in and say, I've never flown a drone, but watching this is insane. So what is that? What was that moment?
This is a really sticky moment. It's like I was watching everybody in the audience, and each of you have picked up your cell phone at least 5 times in 3 minutes. It's like, because we're there, we're not here. And what I see the drone racing is that it's so intense that you have to be there or else you crash. And it puts you into reality. And I work a lot with kids, and when I see kids walking around with cell phones, I'm like, okay, I need to figure out how to go past that cell phone and into the reality of it. And so this is where we are. And what I see is that because that's sticky, and I don't know exactly the inherent DNA or what we've got that's driving us, but there's something that's driving us that's very familiar, but there's also something new with drone racing because it's making us be a superhero. And so, one of the great stories that I had with Ken Soleil from Carson Roberts is that he was Capitol Records as one of his campaigns, and he did a lot of stuff with the Beatles. And he said, as I was walking behind the Beatles, I saw the pavement change colors, and whatever they were wearing that day, or whatever they were singing that day, or whether they were doing sitar music, it changed like really fast. And if you can capture that, that's lightning in a bottle to any marketer, because it's suddenly now you know how to control the fire hose. So it wasn't until I went to Hawaii with these 8 pilots from all around the world. They all had the big YouTube stats. And at the moment, they were all flying what's called the 2-propeller prop, which is about that big. And one of them said, hey, I got these new things, and they're called tri-props. You should try them. And it's like flying on steroids because you go faster, stronger, quicker, and more agile. And so it went from 1 guy to 2 guys to 8 guys in about 30 minutes. And then it went on social media. And then I got a phone call from my friend who runs an e-commerce shop and said, I just sold out of tri-props. And so it's that sticky of what's going on. And so I'll have a guy that'll come in and say he'll fly this one at a local meetup group. And the next week, everybody's flying that frame because you can buy it overnight. And so it means that it's moving really fast because we have a lot of influencer marketing.
What's it cost to actually? What's one of the gears cost? Like what's a rig cost? Can you pull up the deck too?
Well, this one you have to build by yourself, so you buy it for about $200 in parts.
Yeah.
This one is ready to fly, so it's about $499. So they're starting to kind of come down in price. So about $1,000 with the goggles and the radio.
Cool. So all right. So we've got a few stories here on some of the slides. I want to make sure we got some of the major points. Drone racing, the next big thing. So maybe a quick, just some stats on that, or what is it that you're meeting with investors? You've got ESPN bought in. What did you tell them that said, here's some back of the pocket numbers that make it feel that this is a real?
We don't know. That's what's crazy. We just don't know right now. I mean, like if you look at the ESPN3 stats, they've got 99 million homes, 21 college students, and military. Mm-hmm. And we also inked an international broadcast deal with them, so they are an international partner there. So even if you just did the numbers of like, okay, it's a 200 million viewership potential, and we did 0.05 or 0.5%, 0.5%, that's still 10 million viewers. Mm-hmm. So they're interested in, because ESPN's losing money for Disney. They're interested, sorry, and you guys are out here. And so they're interested in looking at the new space. And I think what's very interesting to us is that when we started looking at our deal with ESPN, I'm from that, it's a 30-second spot, I can go run, do whatever I need to do. But the new guys, They're like, it's contextual persistence. They want the thing going all the time because they're going to take their mobile screen with them and go someplace else and watch whether they're in the toilet or whether, those things. So we're changing the way that we started doing advertising, and we're now doing, instead of 30-second spots, we'll do the familiar, but we're going to do sponsor enhancements. It's like, it's not product placement, but it's, wow, that was the fastest moment. Now it's sponsored by Timex. It's kind of that subtle thing, so we're doing things like that. And then we're also taking the vendors that are on location, and instead of having them in the traditional stand and deliver a brochure, we're actually making them have a team, and they have to race on the ESPN. Because all of them can't spend $100,000 on the ESPN. They actually have to, be creative in how they get on their brand.
Okay, so I've got a team. I'm a drone racer. I want to compete. What's the venue I'm competing in? What's the landscape? Is it blue ocean? Like, I've seen shopping, like vacant malls running, and I've seen the desert in Dubai, right, was a recent huge epic race. So what's the stage by which the landscape you race on is?
So right now it's any park, any stadium, any indoor mall. There's a lot of stuff because the FAA regulations that are happening. We have to kind of be careful. We race under the amateur rules of the Academy for Model Aeronautics, so we can do things under the amateur auspice of flying, which is good. But we're working in the realms of, this is what's important about the drone racing is 21st technology sport, which means that there are no rules, there are no regulations for engagement. So for me, I'm not going to put my money on putting AR or VR in football. Sorry, anybody who's in that, because it's not going to be engaging and exciting, because you can't affect the football game. Whereas in drone sports, think like if you actually had a set of HoloLens on and you were able to watch the drone racing going on in real time, and now you and all of the other people that are around you can create an asteroid field that suddenly slows down the physical racers and the virtual racers, we can do that.
So mixed, something we talked about in the back, multi-reality sport is kind of what you're just leaning into now. Sum that up real quick, Doctor.
So multi-reality, so this is virtual reality. So the pilots that are on the local space, like if we were flying in a field right now, we would be flying with these, and I'd be standing behind you going with my goggy shot from my, the photo. But then we also have the augmented reality. So anybody who's running with a Vive or running with Oculus or any of those things, you can dial in. We're building an online virtual course that we've mapped the entire stadium down to a 2 centimeter per pixel resolution, so I know where everything is. And so now I can put a virtual racer and a physical racer in the air at the same time, and if they two collide, I can throw telemetry data up to the physical racer and knock it out of the air.
I think there's some people here in the room that might want to be talking to you. All right, so the other kind of term we were talking a little bit about was contextual persistence. Can you speak a little bit about that as well when you think about drone racing and the modeling you're going after?
So drone racing's the barrier to entry right now is that it's tough to see all these little gnats in a big football field flying. It's a tough one to see, and so your contextual persistence of like who's what and who's in first, it's not there. And so from a sporting point of view, we're looking at the traditional leaderboards and everything that you would do, so you could see that. But we're also looking at how augmented reality and virtual reality can take that to the next level so that you've got the data overlays that say, okay, I can see everybody's in first because it's giving me that context. So that's what's really exciting about the drone racing aspects, because it does leverage all of the new technologies that are coming out really well.
How many teams are there? Like how many are considered professional grade or can be eligible?
Well, technically, nobody's professional right now because you can't pass the 333 exemption on the FAA. So
great.
You might be sponsored part-time.
Okay, so we had Connor Franta and his ops up here, and Steve and I talk about influencers. These teams they're training, right? Just like esports, training. There's a pit crew. There's is it flight or operator? I don't know what the name of the actual operator's called. Pilot, great. There you go. Thank you. There's probably an influence within how brands can interact with them of how they're trying to tell that story. Is there something there as well within the way you're looking at your sport and the teams and what they represent?
Yeah, so if Nike or Oakley's in the room, we'd love to have you as to support Team USA to go down to the World Championships. We have branding opportunities for you for all the drone, the canopies and that kind of stuff. But more importantly, I think we're at the new threshold of what a sport can do and how we can deliver, a more immersive kind of a contextual relevance. So that, like right now, like if you ran a traditional 30-second spot, it has no contextual relevance to what was just happening just now. So if there was a way to connect the two so that there's a contextual relevance, then the immersion of that brand message comes much deeper into your brain, and the next thing you know, you've picked it up in the store and you've bought it. So we're looking for those types of things, and I think I alluded to, like, instead of having, the guy who makes the prop manufacturers, having him handing out props on the other side, we put him on the pit side. And now he has a team called HQ Props Team, and he's out on ESPN showing about how cool and how fast his tri-plops can go. So that's how we're kind of approaching that.
Okay. So if there's anybody that has any questions or anything, because I was fascinated about drone racing in general. So if Jim's around, and
right
Jim,
here.
by the way,
Questions?
I know me and you debated a lot on this one, but let me ask one more question. If anyone else wants to queue in, get that set. So, all right, I in researching drone racing, there is only a few players, but there's a lot cropping up. How is it organized? Like, just give me a quick idea of how is it organized and your role in that landscape of what's going on, real quick.
So I started a company called Rotor Sports, which is sort of the mobile thing, and we started doing a lot of, we were the broadcast licensing and distribution part of things. And then we merged with a company called the International Drone Racing Association, or IDRA, who does a lot of events. So now we have the combined portfolio, the biggest global portfolio of Nationals, Worlds, and the World Cup, which is like a FIFA. And then there's the Drone Racing League, which is Nick and I are good friends. We're also fierce competitors on the baseball field. And he's running all the pre-production stuff in the malls. I think you guys have seen it. It's beautiful stuff. And so what he's trying to do is to really engage the audience from kind of a education part of stuff. So he's floating both of our ships up in that way. So we're focusing very specific on live sport, from that direction from a global standpoint. So those are the two, and then there's a grassroots one as well called Multi-GP. There's a European Rotor Sports League in Europe that's, I think, was back with Sky Sports and Qualcomm and those guys. So it's getting really big very fast.
Got a question right here.
Okay. Hi, Ruth from AT&T Foundry. So I was curious, just even from my own exploration in the drone space, a lot of companies are both fearful and excited about drones right now. So I'm wondering how much advocacy you have to do on behalf of the whole drone movement, and if you're finding that your vertical or use case in particular is more receptive by brands and companies or less receptive, and also how you are communicating or not communicating with jurisdictions and governments and their point of view on this fear versus excitement.
So 2 weeks after, short answer is I wrote, in my other 2 day jobs, I wrote risk management documentation for the FAA for drone racing. And I also wrote all the world standards myself and my team wrote all the world standards for drone racing in large fields for other people. So in the short space of about 4 weeks, I had 40 countries all call me up and go, hey, we want to run drone racing in whatever country they were running in. And I said, okay, great, I'll give you my rules and regulations if you send a team to the World Championships in Hawaii in October. And by the way, it's at Jurassic Park, where they filmed Jurassic Park and Jurassic World, because it's a really cool place. And they'll go, okay, cool, we'll do it. So it went that fast. And then we've got probably 40 teams. So we've been in active discussions with the FAA, FCC, the Academy of Model Aeronautics, because I don't know if you've got kids or children, but my 4-year-old runs around like this and plays my simulator, and this is the best STEM education system I've ever done, and I'm a career educator. I'm going down to Hawaii to speak in their STEMs conference because building all this stuff hits every single piece on there. And so for me, if I can teach a kid how to build it and then fly it, I've got drone citizenship. And so I'm starting from the very beginning of trying to get a kid to understand what acceptable use, if you notice that term in the education of like the mobile, when we started with mobile phones, that's where acceptable use policy started, and I helped architect a lot of that stuff. So now it's drone, acceptable use drone. What does that mean and how does that work? So that's my bigger advocacy part, so that we have a much greater understanding inherently without having to do a lot of enforcement that's happening right now in legislation.
Hi, Charles from Ayzenberg. 2 questions. So the first one from an audience perspective, what are you doing to broaden the reach beyond kind of the gear guys who are already there? And then 2, can you give us an in-room demonstration?
So I actually have a whole set of 5 drones that are about this big, and they have cameras on them, and they all have headsets, and I put kids in them and let them fly all around in a room. And they don't hit, when they hit you, that's like you got, hit by a paper airplane kind of a thing. So we do a lot of that stuff. So, and unfortunately, I left it at home. I had too many other drones in my pocket. But also, it just seems to be viral. Like this is the questions I always ask several of you guys. It's like, well, this thing is moving so fast, and it's just organic, and it's going from pilot to pilot to pilot. And it's traditionally been within, my meetup group in Berkeley is all nothing but Google and Facebook, IT engineers that are all flying drones. But it's getting ready to skip the fence, and that's where I see ESPN is kind of helping that part of it, because it's going into just the everyday normal person has nothing to do with drones, but it's pretty exciting.
So cool. We've got, you've got Hawaii is already happened or coming up next, or New York?
Coming up in October.
Okay, and what do I win if I win this bad boy? Like what's the prize pools look like?
$200,000.
It's pretty good.
Wow.
It's pretty good. We all talked about getting new jobs within the next 5 years. So
we also have an online game that's going to be, it's the purse for that one's $100,000, and it's just like Dota. So if you guys know Dota, you put in-game app purchases, and that could go up to a couple $1 million. So we're skipping the fence on that, and then we're actually putting the full pilot tent at the Worlds. So if you're in the finalists, you actually get to race there as well. And this is our first combination of trying to put the virtual and physical together. So the next year, you actually will be able to run it in augmented reality.
Cool. Thank you, guys.
What else, Jim?
That was
Good?
awesome.
All right. Thanks,
That was
Scott.
awesome. Thank you.